Okay, for the sake of being close to on time, we're going to go ahead and get started. I'm going to be sharing the screen, so I'm not entirely sure what you'll see of us the whole time, but we're going to be going through some stuff, and basically that's going to be the gist of the information that we really want you to have. Please feel free to ask any questions that you might have. You can either unmute yourself or send it to the chat. Because Gracie will be monitoring that and make sure that we do talk about anything that you would be interested in asking about. But also, if you have anything anecdotally that you want to add, please do. If there's something that about homework or anything like that that you have thought about a little bit, we'd be happy to know kind of what works for you, what has been something that you feel really great about, a connection you've made, that kind of thing. So we're just, like I said, we're going to get started. And if I can find the mouse. So what we're talking about today is family engagement and the FAFSA and how to make and keep the connections that you're doing. You've had several years now for most people within our program to be able to make some connections with families. And, you know, everybody has when I was a coach, I had my families that I knew pretty much would do anything I asked. And I think everybody kind of gets those people, but it's how do we get the people who don't necessarily reach out, or how do we connect with the families who really need to understand why this is so important? How do we get them into the schools, into a place where we can actually be of service to them? So today we're going to cover practical tips about family engagement, how to engage more students and families, engaging students and families who are hesitant about doing this and sharing the kind of information we're asking for, sharing the benefits of completing the FAFSA, and we will end with some really cool information from Nate about the FAFSA completion challenge and where we are so far. So, yeah.
We actually can't see your screen. It's just a big picture of us.
Wow, that's exciting. Sorry. Let me.
Oh, yeah. Do we click family engagement?
Now what happens?
There we go.
See it?
Yep.
Okay, so now we're going to try that again. At least you stopped me, because otherwise I'd keep talking forever. So we are going to go to this poll, and what I would like you to do is go ahead and you can use the up at the top, there are two ways you can respond. It can be through an email type response, or you can do a text. And then answer these questions. And the questions are, how are you feeling as we start this conversation this morning? That can be however you're feeling. I think Gracie might pop in a couple of words to do that. But also, how do you feel when you go to a place where you don't know people well? And so what we're wanting is you can put multiple words in there if you're feeling great, tired, need caffeine, whatever those things are. Go ahead and we'll give you a couple minutes to do that now. Is it working?
It's communicating with me. I haven't typed your name right yet. So.
Oh, look at that.
Aha.
Cool. I like the ready. Okay, that is exciting.
Okay, so that was Amber from, well, obviously, you know where I'm from. So I didn't put just one word. I said, I am feeling ready to learn how to support our families in new ways, and not all of that showed up.
Okay.
My apologies if I did that wrong.
No, I actually it makes the Wordle thing look cool. So that's nice. So as you can see, we do have some things. People are feeling happy. People are feeling nervous. People are feeling uneasy. People are feeling excited. I think the thing to keep in mind is that is something that people feel when they're coming to us too. So some of these same things that we feel, they feel. And if we can use those things that we are feeling to relate to the people that we're working with, that's only going to help us in terms of being able to make the connections and do some of the things that we're asking you guys to do. So now I'll go back. So the homework conversation questions that we had made is, how well do you know your community and what issues are facing the families you work with? Think about a family that you've made a good connection with. Why is that and what helped it grow? Right now, because I think there's limited people still on the call, Amber, I'm going to have you unmute first, and because I know you had submitted an answer, can you talk a little bit about how well do you know your community and what are the issues that you guys are facing there?
Yeah, I just kind of said that I feel like our families face a lot of issues, and probably more issues than we even realize. I mean, there are students that come into our counseling office that students don't know where they're going to sleep tonight. Families don't have food at home. So there are big issues like that. But then when we also think about preparing for college, I mean, there are so many students, like our first generation students especially, that they don't know all the steps and what to do kind of throughout the process. The financial aid piece is a really concerning piece. So I don't know, I think there are multiple issues that our families face, and I'm sure there's stuff that we aren't even aware of that students haven't told us too.
Okay, I think that's 100% fair, because I think a lot of people don't tend to necessarily tell you. I'm going to go into here because Davenport Central also put something in there, and he talked about, can you see that? Mm-hmm. Okay. He talked about knowing the community fairly well and having a grasp on those issues, but they do face a lot of the issues that you're talking about as well, Amber, those parenting concerns, financial concerns. The kids are hungry. You know, I need these kids to watch their brothers and sisters while I go to work, you know, all those things. It's good to know that you have a grip on where your community is, because that is going to continue to be things that are of issue. The other part of that question is, think about a family that you have a good connection with. And I think that this is important, because these are two things that are really important. You have to follow through. And when you have a family that comes, some of the families that I had, I just walked up to everybody when I was a coach. I always went up to people, especially people I didn't know, and say, well, which one's your kid? And, you know, they would talk about their kid, and you get that smile because they're talking about their own kid. And suddenly they understand that because that student has hung out in my office, I know who they are. I can be somebody that they could potentially relate to. They don't have to love me, but they can relate to me and know that I'm a good place to come and ask some questions. It really does start with giving support to that student so that the family maybe hears positive things about what you're doing, thus causing them to feel like maybe this is a good place for us to try to do that. Crystal, I know that you're on the line as well, and I'm wondering if you want to add something. If you don't, that's cool. But if you do, if you had any thoughts about those two questions, we'd love to hear it from you.
You know, I was just thinking, sorry, I'm sitting in the dark. I'm glad you can see me, battling a migraine. But anyway, West High School, I think, is a lot like Amber's school with demographic wise, maybe with the low income and so forth. So I don't know. It's hard to have the conversation with a student that doesn't know about where they're going to get their next meal, about how they can go to college. And so, or with the families that maybe don't necessarily support them in a way that I guess we have some issues at West High School with family engagement too, it seems. So I don't know. That's the main reason why I kind of joined this
Well, right, and because you're relatively new in your position,
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
that this is a place where you can play some catch up, because we do have some things that we've talked about over the last couple of years that potentially could be helpful to you. So I'm glad you're here, but I know that you're making some connections with families. You couldn't have the numbers you're having with FAFSA if you're not.
Yeah, I think it's to the advantage because I have been with West High School for the 4 years prior to this. So I guess I do have that connection. So
Right.
yeah.
Cool. Well, thank you very much. So to move on from that then, these are the questions and concerns that came in as you guys registered for the family engagement, the whole shebang of what we're trying to do here today. So when you're dealing, some of the things that you're concerned about, dealing with sensitive issues with families, they don't want to give tax information, they don't want to give marital status, that kind of information. What if a student does not provide a parent's information? Well, that is a very difficult thing because for the FAFSA, it is required. So we have to figure out a way then to, one, give the student strategies, but two, that's a place where you as the coach can reach out and say, we got to have this. Is there a reason you won't do it? Because otherwise there's things that we're going to have to try to do to help the kid and support the student. How to increase family engagement at Saturday workshops and FAFSA nights coming. Few families are utilizing the opportunity for the help. I would say for everybody sitting around this table, we know that story. That is very consistently something that's real. I think what you need to do is celebrate the people that do come. And if you make them feel welcome, maybe they say to their neighbor or to their friend at church or wherever, hey, these guys were really cool when we went and did that. There's another one coming up. You should go do it because I know you had some questions. How do you encourage families to complete the FAFSA and its benefits? Many families are afraid of the FAFSA because they hear of loans. Loans are a part of FAFSA, but loans are the part that you can or cannot opt into. You can choose whether or not you're going to use a loan. So I think that when people hear that from an accountant or hear that from somebody that they don't need to do that, the problem becomes if they don't do that FAFSA, they do not get their Gear Up Iowa scholarship, they cannot necessarily qualify for any institutional scholarships, and they just may miss out on a work study opportunity or some other kind of opportunity that's happening on campus. So those are one of the things that we need to make sure that people are aware of and are ready to, if we can put some things in a box for you guys to be like, yes, this is a good idea, I need to remember that, it might be a good way to reframe some of these things. Being able to address specific complicated scenarios. I don't believe we expect you to be able to answer every question under the sun. But because we've done some training and because there's ways where you can check things, and generally there are going to be people at your events that could answer those questions, just know what you need in terms of information. Some scenarios are really weird. If they own a fifth of a farm and they need to claim that, you're like, what's a fifth of the value? Because math isn't my forte. So sometimes, those are the things that you end up dealing with. How can we best communicate the opportunities to them? We're going to talk about that in another slide, but how are you reaching out? What are you trying to do to get people's attention, get them to events? And then some people aren't really allowed to directly help with FAFSA. So how do we make sure parents understand why it's important, how it's done, when it is, and where they can go to get help? So excuse me while I cough for a second. This is a big area that people struggle with, and that's engaging students and families who are hesitant. I'm not sure I want to do this. We're dealing with this and it's kind of weird. This is where you bring in your partners. If there's a teacher that the student is really attached to or the parents know well, if you can go in through their employers and offer a day where you could help fill out FAFSAs. If there's an administrator, a community leader, if they need help with bilingual family liaisons or somebody who can translate the information that they're having, use those people. Use them. use them a lot. Like, and if we're those people that can help, please bring us in and let us help, because we're not afraid to have kind of those hard conversations and explain. I get it that this is not something that you always see that is important, but this is why we think it's important. And we're going to talk about that a little bit more as well, about why this is so critically important for some of these kids to change their lives, to change the lives of their families. So always, if you can, try to bring college or university financial aid staff to the big events. They are the ones that know. And if you have a lot of kids, like if you're up in Sioux City and you have a lot of kids that are headed to Witt or Briar Cliff or to Morningside, having people from those places there really helps, because they know what they actually need. Remind them that FAFSA is protected data. This is not something, when you fill it out, that they send to any other office. The only thing that's shared back and forth that we are aware of is with the IRS, because that's how they import your tax information. So it is really important that they understand not just anybody can see this information. And chances are, when Elizabeth or Gracie or Nate or I, or even Carmen, if we've helped with 20 to 30 in a night, I won't remember my own name by the end of the night, let alone what anybody else, said or asked.
So just to kind of piggyback off that, I had a parent email me asking me what their password was, because I was the one that was helping them like make the parent ID, and it was in Spanish, and I'm like, I have no idea. So two things, just making sure that you guys have those little FAFSA ID cards. Make sure that each student and the parent has one. It's always a good idea to hand out two. Some people only hand out one, and then people are having to put the student and the parent, and then it locks them out, and it's just a big mess. And also, to go back, one of the events that worked out really well in Marshalltown is Connie ended up getting together with St. Anthony's Church, and they had a FAFSA event after church services. She ended up bringing, I can't remember what her name was, but she worked at Works at MCC. She knows Spanish, and we were expecting only 6 families, and I believe a total of 16 families showed up that day. So maybe also, like Erin was saying, meeting them where they are. A lot of the times doing things like on a Sunday afternoon after church, those are really, really good ways to kind of get parents in the doors and stuff. So
right. And at the very bottom of this, it says that there are undocumented scholarships, and we will be sharing these through the share drive that we have. But we have done some research to make sure what is still active, and as close as we are, some of them are probably due, 5 minutes from now, but some of them are rolling. So there would still be time for students to find some help. But it is always critically important for any undocumented students that they talk directly to the financial aid office of the school that they are interested in attending, because they will have the best information again about what they're able to do and how they can help them. So please remember, if you have any questions, just unmute or send them to Gracie for us. This is a whole lot of words on a screen, but a lot of them are repeats, because these are the answers that you all gave, as these are the things that you're doing. So I thought that this was actually very helpful for you guys to see what other people are doing, because then you can think, oh, hey, wait, I have a student ambassador, or, oh, I never even thought about promoting this at the basketball game or the swim meet or the big band festival that's happening. There's all kinds of ways that if you have those events, you can ask those leaders of those particular groups, hey, could we please make an announcement to remind people that there's a FAFSA event coming up next Tuesday? And for the most part, I can't imagine that people would not do that for you. Yes, ma'am.
Also another kind of tip that helps is Perry does appointment times. So they have, they did this night, which was a FAFSA night. It's called Fill Out Your Forms. And what they did was they did it in appointment times. So that might also be something that could also work, is getting the information, like maybe doing it at a basketball game and saying, sign up for FAFSA help or something like that. And then having parents sign up for that and giving them their information where you can call them and say, hey, don't forget, we have you down for an appointment this day, this time, type of thing.
All right, so, but like, as you can see, there are all kinds of ways you can do things. Everybody has a different kind of campus blast through Infinite Campus or through Campus Connects or however, whatever your school district uses. But it's also really important to use social media. If you've got a Facebook or a Twitter or an Instagram page, to use those things, because even if it only gets to 2 people, those 2 people know. And if they're like me, I read every email that comes from Messenger. So for my own kids, so I kind of do know. I do know it also that phone calls really are good. I know it can be frustrating with phone calls, however, because numbers change like on a dime. So these are all ways you can do it. But I know that because your partner schools, you got posters that you're allowed, you can easily change the date on those for FAFSA events. Use them. Use all the stuff that you get from Course to College, because that stuff will really help you, and it's able to be adapted and shoot for, going forward. You probably could use it next year too. You just cover up the dates and, just keep that going as a thing. Because FAFSA, you'll have people who want to do FAFSA all year, because somebody will decide in April, hey, I'm going to go to college. And you're like, all right, let's do this. I haven't had to do it for a couple of months, but it'll be good. So do we have any questions or anything? Okay,
Well,
cool.
I was just gonna just really quick chime in on the posters, because we use the ones in our bill. Well, the counseling office uses the ones from Iowa College Aid, but we also have created posters using Canva. I think it's CANVA. And Adobe Spark. They both have like free platforms that you can utilize to make really cool posters that you could print easily on like 8.5 by 11 or the 11 by 14 if you want them bigger, or you can even make social media sized posts that you could use to for like Twitter or your Instagram and stuff. So I've been very creative in making helping for us when we did ours, I had a poster that I made, and then also for our counselors, I've been kind of a resource for them on making them some fun social media resources that way too, and posters as well. So just a couple resources that are free and they're fairly easy to use. If you can use anything like Publisher or anything in Word, this is by far easier to use.
Cool. Then we will definitely add that in, Crystal, because that's really great. And to be able to have something that can make it sized to social media,
Yeah,
helpful, because
they're really nice. Like
are hard to make and hard to adapt sometimes. So I like that.
Yeah, they're pretty. When you're for the free software, you have to select your size for social media specifically, but if you pay for it, then you can have it downsize on its own. I just choose to make a couple of different ones using the same type of design, and it's pretty quick, easy. I can make several different things in a matter of like 15 minutes, so it's nice.
I use Canva at Roosevelt as well, and it's a super, super fantastic platform. It takes a little bit of time just to kind of navigate through it, but once you figure out kind of what you want to make and how the thing works, it's pretty cool.
Easier than Publisher though, isn't it?
I have never used Publisher.
Oh. And they're a little bit more dynamic too. So.
Publisher makes me feel like I'm crazy.
Yes.
So Publisher is hard. Okay, so these are some ideas of things to do when working with families. Go where they are. I cannot stress this enough. And if you have kids that you feel like, I am missing this group of kids, they always hang out together, where would I find them? So be present, be visible, be at open houses, do parent-teacher conferences. Sometimes you can do drop-off, pickup, sporting events, plays, those kinds of things. Use what is going on in the school to best support how you're going to be able to get this information across. And when you do that, you can actually put things directly, hey, look, we have this. We have a flyer. Come see us. Get to know the school-based parent councils or committees. If you know that they have improvement committees that are even run by the district, go to those meetings and say, hey, I'd like to make a 2-minute announcement about something that we have coming up. Because then you're going to have more administrators, more teacher leaders, and parents hear what you're trying to do. That will give you a leg up. Work with community-based organizations. And again, I can't emphasize this enough. If you go to places of worship, if you go to social service organizations, like here in Des Moines, we have Monsoon, we have LSI, we have some of these places that would happily host something like this if it's going to help their students. Public libraries are a tremendous resource that we don't use enough because you can use their space and they have computers. It's like a no-brainer. They are closer sometimes to the people in the community, and if you make the connection there, it will make it less overwhelming maybe for some people who don't like to come to school. And finally, do make phone calls. Try not to do like a mass push like you get from political candidates, but make an actual phone call and say, hey, we're doing this, we'd really like to have you there. But sometimes that human connection, the smile in your voice really does make a difference. Oh, look, I got fancy. These, I forgot to put the credit for, but these are ideas that came from Rene Diaz from a program he did, and he works with the Chicago Gear Up program, and he works specifically with family engagement. That is like his pulpit. He knows what he's doing when he talks about this. So you have to build capacity. So this is for anyone who presents information about FAFSA completion. They have to know what they're talking about. So make sure that the people that are giving the information have the actual information people need. Because it is hard when you have a question to then have your expert not actually be one. Start early. Some of these are going to be like, well, this is great, Erin. We've got seniors in high school. But as a district, when you get to reflect on what this is, you can talk about, it would be really cool in middle school if you started talking about what the significant part of their future financial aid might be, depending on if they're going into a trade, if they're going to college, whatever they're doing. There are things that people need to understand and know, and the earlier we start, the better off they'll be. Coordinate with school personnel to make sure that they understand why it is important that these kids finish their FAFSA. If students do their FAFSA, there is some real strong research that correlates to the fact that they will show up on a campus. So we need them to follow the steps, and FAFSA is a huge one for this year. Make sure that everything, like what we were just talking about, how do you make your campaign visible? How do you make it like, do you have one of those thermometers that shows, okay, you've got 150 students, we're up to 75, starting to get orange, it's starting to get red, and they're, getting ready to go. So you have to make it exciting, make it something that kids want to know. That's more Nate's area, and he's going to tell you more because he's more excited about the completion campaign. But it's good because we have good information. Always make sure you conduct information sessions so that people understand what they need to do, what they need to bring, what they need to have, so that maybe you can allay some of the fears or the things that make them uncomfortable before they're even there. And introduce financial aid terminology. Cost of attendance, scholarships, loans, work study, tuition and fees is mumbo jumbo to some people. They don't know what it means. Why? What does this mean, work study? So they study while they work? Or, because I've had people ask me questions, because it's not, if you have not worked in education, that is not something that's intuitive. You don't necessarily know what it is. And we need to remember to be respectful. And I'm not worried about our people, but there are some people that would kind of giggle at some of the questions that we would get asked. And it's not okay. Some people just don't have that information. Conduct multiple sessions. I know most schools are having more than one FAFSA, or if they don't have a FAFSA event in their school more than once, they have community ones that people can be attached to. It's really, really important that we do that and make sure that people are familiar with what is going to happen as this process occurs. Because the next big thing is going to be when they get their award letters and they're like, Miss VG, what does this mean? I don't know. Let's go through it, because I'm not sure. I've never seen one like this. Conduct one-on-one meetings. If you are not able to get people who can come to your appointments or come to your big events, allow them to make an appointment or help them find the place to make an appointment if they want to do it one-on-one. Sometimes people are just more comfortable in that setting versus being in a big group and knowing that this person knows, oh my gosh, that person makes this much money. It doesn't matter, but sometimes people don't want to share that information. Use your online tools. The one example that is the best is that FAFSA forecaster. It gives you some really cool information, and if it tells you what your EFC may be off of a guesstimate. So it does at least allow you to show them this is what that may look like. Make sure that parents understand that a post-secondary education is a long-term investment. And the thing about post-secondary education is it can be trades, it can be college, 2-year or 4-year, it can be an apprenticeship. And all of these things, though, post-secondary wise, are going to allow those students to improve their own life, their lives of their families, and potentially their community, because they're doing something positive in it with the education that they continue to have. How to prepare to financially support their student is important, because for some parents, that's just not possible. So student, you're going to need to have a job if you want pizza night, or if you want something extras, because there are families it's just how tight it's going to be. So what does that look like? The importance of completing the FAFSA and the relationship between that and post-secondary enrollment. Nate's going to dive into that here in a minute. And then really have parents and students work together. I can't tell you how many times I've had a parent come in without their student to do the FAFSA, and I say, well, when they're at college next year, who's going to do it? Because they need to take responsibility. It is time for students to buck up, little campers, and do it. And a lot of kids are very responsible about this stuff, but a lot of kids, including like my own 18-year-old, it's like, what? I have to do what? So you want people to be doing this and be part of this. So at this point, we are going to kind of switch gears a little bit, I think. Haha! I do think correctly. So we're going to switch gears a little bit, and we're going to go over some information with things that we're doing in this office. But first, I have to find my poll. Can you do it, or can I?
Scroll down. Or no, move your mouse down. And then
Oh, that's right. But it's not there. So I need to.
exit. And now put your mouse down.
Don't I have to go
Yeah,
here?
it might be in the Zoom.
Controls.
Why doesn't it want to go there? Here, aha! Okay, so I'm going to launch a poll, maybe, in theory.
Yep, the poll is active. The question is, what percentage of Europe, Iowa students plan on completing the FAFSA according to Europe survey results? All right, I think the other two people are us. So, here we go. So we have most of you selecting near 85%. We have one person that says over 90%. But both are really good guesses. It's actually over 90%. So we'll go, we'll share these results really quick. So everybody should see the results. 3 out of 4 said near 85%. One person said over 90%. So if we go,
I think you had to X out of that.
So just
there we go.
And then present. There you go.
Yep, and we're good.
So then when we actually look at FAFSA completion and then the students who took the survey, if you look at that yellow dot up there, 91.9% of students agree with the statement or strongly agree with the statement that they plan on completing the FAFSA this year, which is slightly higher than those that expect to earn a 2-year degree or beyond. And I think the reason for that gap is there are some trade schools, there are some certificate programs that are Title IV eligible. So we will have some students that maybe won't go to a 2-year or a 4-year that may go a different route where they could potentially get their scholarship applied to. So I just want to share this because when we did the FAFSA completion challenge and we asked everybody on average, what percentage of students do you think want to go on a path where their scholarship, their GIRP scholarship may apply? I think the average was around 70 to 76% of you believe that students wanted to go on. So we have more students that plan on going to a 2-year degree or higher, and we have even more students who plan on completing the FAFSA. So it's really important to just keep that in mind. Our goal is to really figure out what the students' intents are and help them navigate that process. And so some of the things that we will hear sometimes, right, is that not all students, want to go to college. And we're not going to disagree with that. But what we're going to say is that students are reporting, 92% are reporting that they want to do some form of post-secondary education, and their scholarship may be applied to that. So let's make sure that they're getting the FAFSA done and helping them navigate that process as well as the application process so they're able to get what they want. The other piece, too, is looking at the FAFSA completion. Something that's really exciting, as of October 30th, 21.6% of our students have completed a FAFSA that are seniors that are at our GIRP schools. Last year, when you look at 2019 seniors, 46% of that class had completed a FAFSA. So we're just about halfway there. We are actually halfway there with the numbers as of yesterday, which I'll share in a little bit. So engaging students and families around the FAFSA, this is stuff that Aaron talked about already. There's a lot of different modes, different ways that you can communicate. One is through the school channels, e-blasts, text messages, getting it up on the website, newsletters, sending letters home. Some of you might send reminder slips home with students. You'll have posters, announcements going on in your school, as well as all senior assemblies. These are great ways to get information out to students around the FAFSA. And then there's communication through social media. Some of you are leveraging that very well. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Information that you can include as you're sending this stuff out is just a reminder about the GIRP Iowa Scholarship. Students cannot get the GIRP Iowa Scholarship without completing the FAFSA. You can also include upcoming FAFSA events. You can include information on how to schedule an appointment with a coach or a counselor. As you are aware of your community resources, you can include that too. ICANN, if you have an ICANN office close to you, they will let families schedule a one-on-one time to meet with them to complete their FAFSA. So as you are aware of the community resources, share that out and let families know that they can go there as well as utilizing their coaches. And then another big thing to include is just college priority deadlines. If we have a lot of students who are interested in going to Iowa State University, knowing when that priority deadline is pretty important, so then we can just nudge them to get that done on time, so that increases their likelihood of getting in as well as getting the most aid that they could get. And then sharing the benefits of the FAFSA. Kind of went over this already, but just a reminder, the GIRP scholarship, it will be $1,200 a year for up to 4 years. There's a possibility for the Pell Grant, possibility for work study. It's the only way to get federal loans. That can be a scary thing, but families, reminding them they don't have to take out the loan option. And then completing the FAFSA allows students to receive institutional aid. I put stars around that because many institutions will not consider giving you aid until you complete the FAFSA because they want to make sure that you're getting the maximum there before they apply any institutional aid that they have. And looking at priority deadlines, completing the FAFSA sooner than later is super important. December 1st, we already have 3 colleges that have priority deadlines: Iowa State, University of Iowa, and Morningside College. January 15th, UNI, Central College, Grandview, and Grinnell have their priority deadlines. And then after that, they just start rolling. We'll have quite a few that'll have February 1 deadlines, March 1st, March 15th, April 1st, April 15th, so on and so forth. So it's really important to just keep letting students know that if they're interested in these institutions, they can apply after this, but if they can apply prior, that just gives them more opportunities for that financial aid that they're looking for, as well as a better idea of where they're standing with the application process, so they can start making their decisions sooner on where they want to go. So we just recommend, especially December 1st, that's coming around. You'll have Thanksgiving break prior. If you know students who are planning on going to Iowa State University of Iowa, and Morningside College, work with them now to make sure that they get that application and then that they're getting the FAFSA completed. And then start working ahead too then for the January 15 deadline, because at the end of December, we're going to have winter break, and then early, into January, some of your schools might not start until that second week of January. So it's really important to just work with those students maybe earlier in December for that January 15th deadline.
Nate, if I can intervene for a second.
Yep.
The Gear Up scholarship is a huge benefit, but the state of Iowa right now has the last dollar scholarship. And for our students who are thinking 2-year degrees are the way to go, and they want to do carpentry or welding or healthcare, that is a really unique opportunity for them to get their tuition covered. And so the only way to get the last dollar scholarship is to be enrolled in one of those programs and file the FAFSA. So even beyond Gear Up students, that's a big carrot that you can entice students to do.
Thank you. And then just looking at October FAFSA completion numbers, overall we saw a 3.3% increase in FAFSA completion. Looking at our Gear Up seniors, we had about 20.6% of our students complete the FAFSA. Compared to last year, there was 17.3% in our schools, the 2019 seniors that completed it. 11 of our schools saw a 3.3% increase or more. We had 5 see between a 0 and a 3.3% increase, and we did see 8 schools that had decreases. We're not really worried about the schools that have seen decreases at this point in time. Depending on your school, depending on your community, you may have your FAFSA nights and your events set up more in November than October. And so what we do hope to see, though, at the end of November is more students or more of our schools seeing an increase in FAFSA completion. And if you are curious as to where you're sitting specifically, talk to your facilitator. They can send you some more data. You can always send me a message. I can send you that data as well. We also have FAFSA data on the Gear Up Iowa website that you can check out. And then as of yesterday, we have 23.2% of our students who've completed a FAFSA. So we are well on our way to exceed what November looked like last year. Last year, I want to say it was just over 26% of our students completed a FAFSA, or the 2019 seniors completed a FAFSA. And within the first week of November, we're just 3% away from that. So keep up the good work. I know there's a lot of FAFSA nights and different events coming up that'll help increase that number, but we're looking really good.
Woo! And that's because of your guys' hard work.
Absolutely. And then how do you get FAFSA reports? This is something that's come up. I think everybody should have received an email from Carmen or Jamie just kind of talking about FAFSA reports. So there is no data sharing agreement between the schools and Gear Up Iowa. So we cannot share FAFSA data with you. However, the Department of Ed or the AEAs has a data sharing agreement with Iowa College Aid. So what we have to do is we have to send your FAFSA data to your AEA reps, and then your AEA reps follow whatever their data sharing agreements say, which will eventually get FAFSA data to the counselors, who can then share it with the Gear Up coaches if you have a Gear Up coach. Just a heads up, the Department of Ed has not shared high school enrollment data with our office yet. So we're not going to be sending out general reports, all students at your schools who've completed the FAFSA. We're only looking right now at the Gear Up cohort, since that's the only group that we have data on currently. So our FAFSA reports run Wednesday evenings, usually Thursday mornings or Friday mornings. We can send that data out to the AEA reps, and we just ask them as soon as they can to then send it out to the counselors. If anybody has any questions, just contact your Gear Up Iowa facilitator and we can help out with that.
Nate, we did have a question. So the school-wide report should start coming mid to late November. It's just a matter of when we get those from the Department of Ed. So.
Perfect. I think that ends what I had. Are there any questions or comments that anybody has?
Again, you can unmute yourself or type in the chat box.
So I just wanted to be clear on those reports. It shows the students that have it complete, the ones that have something they need to do. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's what I sent to Mark last week to send to you. So, and I will be working on the new one because we saw them. So I'll either get that out later this afternoon or early tomorrow morning to
So
get
there
to.
was something that went out?
I sent it to Mark last week. So your counselors in theory should have it.
Oh, okie dokie. So
Yeah,
we do have some.
Yeah, there is a way that you should be able to see, because I think there were 2 that were missing parent signatures from West. I don't remember exactly, but it was something like that. But I did send it to Mark, so I would definitely talk to whoever the counselor is in your building that gets it to make sure that you can see so you can follow up.
Okay, because I haven't received anything besides something that it was either the end of October or right at the start of November, and it was like they told me last year's data. And so, and I couldn't open it or something. So I will follow up with that because I want to, my plan is if I can see who hasn't complete and nothing to follow up on, I want to send them out little goodie bags that have candy items just saying, way to go, FAFSA is done, next step.
I like that. Yeah, and you have that list. So I will, like I said, I will be sending it again to Mark. But see, for you, it goes from Mark to Jeff to your school.
Yeah.
So
And it was from Jeff that I received
kind
it.
of it's a harder process. And I got to be honest, I wish it was easier, but right now that's what we have to do. So
That's okay. I will just follow up with Jeff. It's no problem.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
I think you bring up a good point. If any of you haven't seen reports from us, especially in the last couple of weeks, talk to your facilitator and we can work to try to get those moved down to you because we have been sending them out.
Hey, I was just going to say for Roosevelt, what I'm running into is I've reached out to Ryan, who's receiving the report a couple of times. All of the counselors are in classrooms pretty much all day, every day. So I know he's super, super behind on emails, but I think I've asked him for that report 3 times now. I just sent him an email yesterday. So if I see him later today, I'm going to try to touch base with him at some point, hopefully, and because he should have it by now. Because I would like to target students for our FAFSA nights that's next week.
Yeah, and I just sent out this morning the newest reports for Des Moines to Sue at the AEA. So I'm not sure how fast Sue sends it on from there, but there should be then another report coming very soon as well, more updated.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Well, I guess if you guys don't have any other questions or comments, we're kind of at the end of what we were going to try to do with you guys today. Please feel free at any time to email any of us with questions or things. If there's something that you think for the good of the group that would be helpful, we can also push it out for news you can use next week. So we do hear you with the delay of getting the information about FAFSA. It's just at this point, because it is federally protected information, we have to do it in the means that we've got. So try to be patient with people that are pushing. We're getting it out as quickly as we can, but that's the only thing we can control with that. So do try to see if you can get that information. I think it'll be helpful for you. But we can try to help through different ways if there's something we can do. But anyway, have a great day. Thank you very much for being here today. We really appreciate it. And happy November. Sorry it's cold. Those things.
Thank you. Have a good one.
Thanks, you too.